Life slowly returned to normal inside the community. Cars moved without tension. People greeted each other again. Children played freely on the streets. The fear that once filled the air was gone. The woman stayed quiet now. No rules in her hands. No authority in her voice. She learned the cost of control too late. Some nights, she sat alone and listened. Not to silence, but to her own thoughts. She finally understood something important. Respect cannot be forced. It must be earned. Across the land, the man continued his life. He fixed fences. He walked the fields. He enjoyed the quiet mornings. He did not change the system for revenge. He changed it for fairness. Requests came from other communities. Advice, guidance, support. He answered only what mattered. Power followed him naturally, but he never chased it. One evening, the HOA board visited the ranch. Not with demands, but with thanks. They spoke honestly. They admitted mistakes. The man listened patiently. Systems fail, he said calmly. People correct them. They nodded. Before leaving, one member asked quietly, "Why didn't you use your authority sooner?" The man smiled softly. "Authority should be last," he replied. That answer stayed with them. Weeks passed. The community grew healthier. Rules became clearer. Voices became equal. No one ruled through fear anymore. The woman moved away quietly. No farewell. No drama. Just a lesson left behind. At sunset, the man stood near the ranch gate. The same gate where everything began. This time, it stayed open. No shouting followed. No sirens came. Only peace. He looked at the road one last time, then turned back toward his land. The story ended where it started, with silence. And the truth remained. Power without humility destroys. Power with humility restores. That was the difference. It was early morning. The sky was gray. The air was quiet and cold. He stood near his window with a warm cup of coffee in his hand. Snow had fallen all night. That was normal. Winter was always harsh here. But something else was not normal. He already knew what he was going to see outside. Still, his heart felt heavy. When he opened the door, the cold wind hit his face. He looked at his land, and his hands slowly tightened around the cup. There it was. A huge pile of snow. Again, the snow was not natural. It was pushed, packed, dirty, heavy. Tire marks were clear on the ground. This snow did not fall from the sky. It came from trucks. HOA trucks. This was the third time this week. He stayed silent for a long moment. No shouting. No anger. Just deep breathing. The snow pile was taller than before. Much taller. It covered a big part of his property. It blocked his path. It looked like someone dumped their problem right at his door. He slowly walked closer. His boots sank into the hard snow. Ice scratched under his feet. He bent down and touched it. Frozen solid. This snow would not melt soon. He looked toward the street. Nothing. No truck. No workers. No warning. Only silence. The homeowners association controlled the nearby houses. They managed roads, cleaning, and snow removal. Every winter, they cleared the streets. But instead of taking the snow away, they dumped it here. On his land. Like it was nothing. He owned this property legally. He paid for it. He paid taxes. Yet every winter, the same thing happened. At first, he tried to ignore it. The first snow dump was small. He told himself it was a mistake. The second time, he sent an email. No reply. The third time, he called. The phone rang, then stopped. Now this. The snow was higher than his fence. He looked around. No cameras. No signs. Just his land being used without permission. Anyone passing by would think this place was abandoned. But it was not. He lived here. He cared. A car passed by slowly. The driver looked at the snow pile, then at him, then drove away. That look stayed in his mind. It was the look of someone watching a quiet problem grow. He went back inside and closed the door. The house was warm, but his thoughts were cold. This was not just snow. This was disrespect. He sat at the table and opened his laptop. He checked old emails. Messages sent to the HOA. Dates. Times. No answers. No care. Every winter, the same silence. Outside, the snow trucks were probably still working. Cleaning streets. Making roads safe. And dumping everything on him. He wondered why. Maybe his land was in a perfect spot. Maybe it was easy. Maybe they thought he would not fight back. He was a quiet man. He kept to himself. He followed rules. He did not like trouble. And maybe that was why they chose him. But quiet did not mean weak. He looked out the window again. Snowflakes were falling slowly now. Soft and light. Beautiful. But under them was the ugly pile that did not belong there. This winter felt different. The snow was higher. The dumping was faster. And the silence was louder. He closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. For the first time, he stopped asking for help. Instead, he started thinking. Thinking about rules. Thinking about rights. Thinking about what was allowed. The HOA believed this snow was his problem. They had no idea what they were creating. Because sometimes, when you push someone too far, you don't get a fight. You get a plan. And this plan would turn winter into something they would never forget. The next few days passed slowly. Snow kept falling, but the trucks kept coming too. Each morning, he woke up with the same heavy feeling. He did not rush outside anymore. He already knew what he would see. The snow pile stayed there, growing wider and harder with every passing night. He tried once more to do things the right way. He picked up his phone and called the HOA office again. The call went to voicemail. He left a calm message. He said his name. He said his address. He asked for help. His voice was polite and steady. No one called back. He sent another email. This time, he added photos. Clear pictures of the snow piles on his land. He wrote short sentences. He did not accuse anyone. He only asked one simple question. Why was the snow being dumped on his property? The reply never came. Outside, the street looked clean and perfect. The road was clear. The sidewalks were safe. Families walked their dogs. Kids played near the houses. Everything looked well managed and controlled. Except his land. His property looked like a dumping ground. The snow was dirty now, mixed with gravel and trash. Old cups, broken plastic, even pieces of wood. The weight of it pressed deep into the ground. Grass underneath was gone. He stood near the edge of his land and watched another truck pass by. It slowed down for a second. The driver looked away. Then the truck moved on. No wave. No stop. That moment stayed with him. It told him everything. They knew what they were doing. He went back inside and sat quietly. Anger tried to rise, but he pushed it down. Anger makes noise. Noise brings mistakes. He did not want mistakes. He wanted control. He opened his laptop again, but this time, he did not write emails. He searched laws, local rules, property rights, snow removal rules. He read slowly, line by line, word by word. Something important became clear. Snow dumped on private land becomes the responsibility of the landowner, but only after it is legally placed there. And no one had permission to place it there. That mattered. He printed the rules. He highlighted lines. He made notes. He was careful. He was patient. Days passed. The snow piles did not move. The HOA stayed silent. It felt like a test. Like they were waiting to see how long he would accept it. Neighbors started noticing. A man walking his dog stopped once and looked at the piles. He shook his head. Another woman slowed her car and stared. No one spoke to him, but the looks were enough. His land was sending a message, even if he was not. One evening, the snow blocked part of his driveway. He could still get out, but barely. If it snowed more, he would be trapped. That night, he did not sleep well. Not from fear, but from thinking. He thought about winters ahead. About the same problem repeating. About silence becoming normal. He knew one thing for sure. If he did nothing, this would never stop. The HOA had power, but power often comes with rules. And rules can work both ways. He remembered past winters when things were fair and simple. Back then, snow meant quiet mornings and warm lights at night. Now snow meant stress and waiting. That change hurt him more than the cold ever could, and it stayed heavy inside his chest every single slow night during that long winter. He looked outside one last time before bed. The snow stood tall and quiet under the streetlights. It felt like pressure, like a challenge. He did not feel small anymore. He felt ready. Because sometimes, when silence lasts too long, it stops being peace. It becomes permission. And he was done giving permission. The storm arrived without warning. Wind screamed through the trees, and snow fell harder than ever before. By morning, the world looked buried and silent. He opened his door and felt his breath stop. The snow pile was massive. It had doubled overnight. The HOA trucks had come late in the night. They did not stop at the edge this time. They pushed everything forward. Snow, ice, dirt, and trash now blocked his driveway completely. He could not leave. His car was trapped. His property looked like a frozen wall. He stood there for a long time, saying nothing. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A weather alert warned people to stay indoors. Roads were dangerous. Emergency access mattered. He looked at the snow again and felt something new. Not anger. Clarity. He took photos from every angle. Close shots, wide shots, tire marks, street signs, timestamps. He recorded a short video showing the blocked driveway and the public road just feet away. Then he called the HOA. This time, someone answered. He explained calmly. He said his driveway was blocked. He said emergency access was gone. The voice on the other end sounded bored. The man said snow removal was already finished. He said it was not their responsibility. Those words ended something inside him. He asked one last question. Can you confirm this snow was placed by HOA trucks? There was a pause. Then the man said, we'll look into it, and hung up. No promise. No help. He stood in the quiet house again, phone still in his hand. The silence felt heavy, but it no longer scared him. It focused him. He opened his laptop and organized everything. Photos, videos, emails, call times, weather reports. He created folders. He labeled files. He treated it like work, not emotion. Hours passed. Outside, the sun came out, but nothing melted. The snow wall stayed firm and cold. Neighbors tried to drive past his land and slowed down. Some turned around. Some stared. By afternoon, an HOA truck returned. It stopped. The driver stepped out and looked at the snow. He looked at the house. Then he got back into the truck and drove away. That was the moment. They were not fixing it. They were hoping he would. He smiled for the first time in days. Not a happy smile. A knowing one. He went back to the laws. He read deeper. He called the city office and asked simple questions without giving names. The answers were clear. Snow placed on private land without permission becomes part of that land. The owner can manage it as they see fit, as long as they do not break safety rules. That line stayed in his mind. Manage it as they see fit. He looked out the window at the wall of snow again. What once felt like a problem now looked like a resource. A tool. Something solid. That night, he made a decision. He would not remove the snow. He would move it. Carefully. Legally. Fully within the rules. The HOA thought winter had trapped him. They were wrong. Winter had handed him everything he needed. As the sky darkened, he wrote down a plan. Simple steps. Clear goals. No rush. He checked equipment rental prices. He marked property lines. He measured distances. Every move would be clean. Every move would be allowed. He closed the notebook and leaned back. Outside, the wind picked up again, pushing snow across the street. The wall stood firm, waiting. This was no longer about snow. This was about respect. And soon, the HOA would be forced to pay attention. He turned off the lights and went to bed calmly, knowing tomorrow would begin something new, something controlled, something quiet, yet powerful enough to change how everyone around him treated his land forever from now. Morning came with clear skies and sharp cold. He stepped outside and studied the snow again. The pile was no longer just a mess. It was tall, heavy, and strong. It sat fully on his land. He checked the property markers one more time. Everything was inside the lines. He made his first call. It was not to the HOA. It was to an equipment rental company. His voice was calm. He asked for a small loader. Nothing big. Nothing loud. Just enough to move snow. The man on the phone gave a time and a price. It was affordable. Next, he called a local contractor for advice. He did not give names. He only asked about safety. How high could snow be stacked? How close to the road was allowed? The answers were simple. As long as nothing crossed into public space, he was free. That was all he needed. The machine arrived in the afternoon. Neighbors watched quietly as it rolled onto his land. No one complained. No one stopped him. The engine hummed low and steady. He climbed in and took a deep breath. Slowly, he began to move the snow. He did not rush. He did not scatter it. He pushed it forward, layer by layer. He shaped it with care. The wall began to form along the edge of his property, facing the street. It was neat, straight, clean. Hour by hour, it grew taller. Cars passing by slowed down. Drivers stared. Some people pulled out phones. Others shook their heads. The wall looked strange, but it looked solid. It looked planned. By sunset, the wall stood higher than a man. Thick and wide. It did not block the road, but it stood close enough to be impossible to ignore. The street suddenly felt narrow. The HOA street felt smaller. He shut down the machine and stepped back. The snow wall was real. The next morning, the reaction began. An HOA car stopped across the street. Two people got out and stared at the wall. They talked quietly and pointed. One of them took photos. Then they left without a word. Later that day, an email arrived. It said the snow wall was a concern. He replied with one sentence. He said the snow was on his property. He said it was placed there without permission. He said he was managing it safely. Nothing more. The wall continued to grow over the next days. Each night, more snow fell. Each morning, he added to it. The wall became taller and longer. It followed the full edge of his land. It looked like a frozen barrier. The street changed. Large HOA trucks now had trouble turning. Plows slowed down. Drivers became careful. What once felt open now felt tight. The wall did not touch the road, but its presence controlled it. Neighbors started talking. Some smiled. Some laughed. Some finally understood. The HOA sent another message. This one sounded polite. They asked for a meeting. He declined. He said everything could be handled in writing. The snow wall stood silent, but it spoke loudly. Every day it remained. It reminded them of their choice. They had dumped snow without asking. Now they had to live with it. He stood outside one evening, watching the sun hit the white surface. It reflected light across the street. Calm, bright, unmovable. For the first time all winter, he felt peace. The wall was not anger. It was balance. And it was only the beginning. He knew the wall would melt one day, but the lesson would not. Rules had been followed. Lines were respected. Silence had ended. What stood before them was proof. Calm action could speak louder than any argument. Winter had given him power, and he had used it wisely, without breaking a single law or raising his voice once anywhere. Spring came slowly. The snow did not disappear in one day. It softened first. The hard white wall began to sink a little under the sun. Small drops of water ran down its sides. The street felt wider again, but something had already changed. The HOA did not dump snow again. Not once. Their trucks still cleaned the streets, but they stopped far from his land. Snow was taken away properly. The road stayed clear, and his property stayed untouched. No letters came. No calls followed. The silence returned, but this time it felt different. It felt respectful. One afternoon, he stood outside and watched the wall melt. It was smaller now, lower than before. The power it once showed was fading, but the message remained strong. People passing by no longer stared. Life slowly returned to normal. A neighbor finally stopped to speak. The man smiled and said, "That was smart." He nodded and smiled back. He did not explain. He did not brag. There was no need. The problem had ended. Inside his home, he packed away the papers, the photos, and the notes. He did not throw them out. He stored them neatly, just in case. But deep down, he knew he would not need them again. The HOA had learned something important. Quiet people still have limits. As the days grew warmer, grass began to show under the melting snow. The damage was there, but it could be fixed. He spent time outside, cleaning slowly. Not with anger. Not with rush. Just steady work. With every shovel of old snow, he felt lighter. Winter had tested him. Silence had tested him. Disrespect had tested him. And he had answered without shouting. The wall was gone by the end of the season. Nothing remained but wet ground and memory. But something invisible stayed strong. Boundaries. Clear and understood. The HOA never contacted him again. They never needed to. He went back to his quiet life. Morning coffee by the window. Calm evenings. Peaceful nights. Snow was no longer a threat. It was just weather again. Sometimes, he thought about how close he came to reacting with anger. About how easy it would have been to fight loudly. To argue. To complain online. To cause noise. But noise was never the answer. Control was. He had used their own actions, followed the rules, and let patience do the work. The result was not just a clear property. It was respect. True respect. One evening, as the sun set over his land, he stood where the wall once stood. The street was open. Cars passed freely. Everything looked normal. But he knew better. Normal had been earned. The lesson stayed with him. When someone treats your space like it does not matter, you do not always need force. You need knowledge. You need calm. And you need to stand your ground without crossing lines. Winter ended. The story stayed. And the HOA would remember that quiet man, and the winter they tried to ignore him, for many years to come, because silence backed by action can be louder than any argument, and patience can turn even dumped snow into power without breaking rules or dignity.